Okay. This is going to be a demonstration for the final steps of your Royal Liechtenstein portraits. Okay, so even before you get started with the drawing itself, I did want to show you guys a couple of different options with how the drawing could look. So, and it really all depends on, like, your obviously your artistic abilities, where you're at with the project, and if you have like enough time to do it. Obviously, I'm gonna give you guys a couple of days to work on the coloring part, but bare minimum though, it probably should only take you maybe 2 or 3 class periods to finish this project. If I were like give it an estimate time, but obviously one of the ways we could have it look is going to be like the Royal Liechtenstein style. So if you remember, like when we talked about the coloring for the portraits, we kind of used solid basic colors, and then we just add some textures to add details to the drawing. So mainly was using the Ben Day dots for the skin tones. There's also a couple of texture brushes where you can do some like lines, or um, you can incorporate some different textures using the brushes in Procreate. So you don't have to go too crazy with it though, but definitely a little detail you can add to your drawings. I'm completely fine if that's something you want to do. This is like kind of the bare minimum for this project. Just coloring it and adding some texture brushes. It'll look nice. The other option is you want to go for like a more digital looking painting with your artwork. So if you look at more like modern comic books now, unlike Royal Liechtenstein, we didn't have to worry too much about printing and printing out stuff. Most of the stuff's like shown digitally. Obviously there's printouts of things, but it's more expensive. But there's advancements in coloring. So if you want to do like more of like a digital painting where you're thinking about like your shadows, lights and darks, highlights. So you do like more of like a rendering. This is one approach you can go. Or if you want to go like the hybrid mix of the two, which I call you can go with a hybrid mix. So this could be like one option if you want to go all out with it. All right. So just a couple of different options. I just wanted to show you with the assignment. It really depends on where you are in your art skills and how far you want to take it. Okay, so at this point now, you should be at this point with the your portrait drawing. So you should have your colors all as separate layers. So I have like one layer for like my skin tone, one for the hair. I also combined my hair and the eyes together because they were two separate parts. So you could combine some of them together if you want. One for my lips, one for my shirt, one for the watch, and then one for the stripes on my shirt. So, if you have more layers or even less layers than I do, completely fine. Just keep in mind though, like all these areas that you're coloring in, you're able to kind of go back into it and add details for like those specific parts. So you don't have to worry about like drawing between the lines. It's just gonna only color in those parts. Okay, so now to do the clipping mask, I'm just gonna do like the Royal Liechtenstein first, because that's probably the easiest one to do. You're going to go to your layer where you have like the skin tone or whichever layer you want to color in, and you're gonna add another layer above it. So I'm gonna click on the plus on the top, and it's gonna create a layer right on top of where I color in the skin. So another thing you want to do too, and you might have your draw layer unlocked. So make sure to lock it if you haven't. I think you should have locked it by the last thing that we did. Okay, so moving on. So okay, now I'm just gonna add the Ben Day dots to my drawing. So you can go off the layers here. I'm gonna open up my my reference to look at it just to see some details. You can zoom in on it too. If you want. And then I'm gonna open up my palette that I had before. So okay, so at this point now you have a little bit more artistic liberty on like what you want to draw, what you want to create. So I wanted to create more of like a reddish tone for my skin. Obviously it's like pretty pink right now. So now if you aren't happy with the colors, there's a way to kind of like adjust and modify your colors as you go along. I always do this when I'm doing digital work. So if I click on layer 3 and I want to change like the hue, saturation, or the color of the layer, you can click on layer 3, click on the adjustments panel, and just click on hue, saturation, color. So I feel like this is a little too saturated, so I'm gonna make myself just a little bit more pale. So this will make it pretty much black and white. This case will make it blue, and this will make it more red. So you can play around with the saturation. This will change like the colors. I still want to keep it like that tan color. And then brightness, I wouldn't worry about that though. You don't have to worry about brightness. So just mess around with hue saturation if you're not happy with the color, and then you can just click on this again to finalize it. If you want to undo it, you can always undo it. I definitely think it's a little too red though. So I would just go between your layers if you want just the colors. It's optional. And I want to add a little bit of red. So obviously my palette didn't pick up any red on here, so I'm gonna have to click on this wheel tab again, and I'm just gonna pick out a red. So now we have like your base colors. You can have a little bit of fun, play with the colors a little bit more. So I'm gonna go with like a more saturated red, but not too saturated. I'm gonna do like a mid-tone red. And I'm gonna click on the brushes. You're gonna go to the texture brushes, and there's a lot of different brushes you can use. Definitely the one that we're using for like the skin, that was like the immediate one, says Decimals. So this Decimals Rosetta. I recommend using Decimals though, but because that works better. And then you're gonna color it in. So just to let you know though, you're gonna have to kind of play around with the brush size and how far in you zoom in, zoom out. But obviously you don't want to make it super big though, and color it in because it's gonna make like really large dots. So okay, so let me go back to the layers. So we found the brush. Go back to the layers now. We're gonna have to go back to layer 9, and all you're gonna do is you're gonna click on the box, the gray box, and you're gonna click on clipping mask. So it's going to create an arrow going down to the skin layer, or layer 3. And then now when we color it in, it's only going to show up on layer 3. Okay, so one thing I would say though about this brush though, it does something like really weird where like if you lift the brush or even like go to the edge and then kind of draw over, it's going to kind of reset the brush. So if it looks where you mess up, do it over again. But you have to like press down on the brush and don't let go of the brush. Okay, so that's gonna create the consistent Ben-Day dots, that you want. If you lift it up and you go over it again and again, it's gonna do like layers of dots. So you don't want it to look like this, otherwise it's gonna look like like you got scales or something. So obviously these dots are too big, so you have to play around with the size to get like the dots that you want. So make this a little bit smaller, and then also zooming in will affect it too. So this is pretty good here. So you don't want it too big, too small, and you might have to press the screen a little bit harder just so you keep a consistent base, because if you draw it lightly though, it's going to create like lighter dots. You want to press pretty hard, but obviously not too hard to damage the iPad, but and then color the whole skin tone. Okay, so obviously this is a little too strong of a red, so we're gonna have to click on the layers. If you click on N, you can change the opacity. So we're gonna lower the opacity so it's not as red, and this basically just kind of fades it out. So that's all you need to do for like the Ben-Day dots. So you can do use the Ben-Day dots. So I'm gonna go back on here. I'm actually gonna do like a darker blue, a little bit artistic liberty. Let me just make it like a darker blue, almost like a black. And I don't know, maybe I might want to use just gotta see what this cubes look like. Kind of curious. So I'm gonna do like another one for like my shirt. So this is the layer for the shirt. If you're not sure, you can always click on the check to see what layer. So I'm gonna do plus again. Clipping mask, so this is only going to affect the shirt now. So this is kind of an interesting pattern to do. So you can kind of play around with like some of the brushes, just try them out. Maybe I might want to give myself like some textured shirt. Give it like a Valedictorian look. Trying to think of what other brushes you can play around with. It's mostly the textured brushes. There's not a lot of them though. Like these are pretty good. You could probably play around with this too. Actually, this works like a physical brush. So I would just stick with like the or you can have fun with just like coloring it in too. Either or is fine. That's how you use these brushes though. You just want to keep it consistent. Most of these texture brushes you can just kind of just hold, press, and then just draw your lines. If it does something funny, you can always undo it. Sometimes it's not like consistent with when it makes lines. Okay, so that's kind of bare minimum with like the the using the Roy Lichtenstein portraits. So I'm just gonna delete these again. So now if you want to do it like more detailed, like you're doing like a painting or a drawing, I'm gonna create the new layer again on the skin. I'm going to do a clipping mask, and I'm just gonna go with a darker value for my skin. So it's more of like a brownish dark gray. So I could probably use like this color right here for the skin. So a lot of these like top tones are like skin tones. So, and I probably would use a brush for this. So I typically like to use the oil paint brush. Some of these brushes will create more of like a transparent look. So just kind of keep that in mind. So, layer 9. And, I'm just kind of looking at the lights and darks. So obviously, there's like a shadow on my hand here. And, don't worry if it's too dark. That's fine. We can always lower the opacity. So just color in, areas that, I see would be shadows. So I'm kind of zooming out. I'm just worried about only like the lights and darks. So this is obviously too dark of a gray. So, I can click on the N again on the layer and lower the opacity. And then if you want to even take it like a step further, you could adjust the colors. But I would do it like at the very end though. So, usually on the face, there's usually shadows under the eyes, part of the bridge on the nose, under the nose. So it's a little harder because, we don't really have good values with these portraits that we took. Like the lighting's really crummy. It would have been nice to use the spotlights for the project though, but that's fine. So, we're just laying out where like the shadows would be. So you do the shadows, and then you can even do like another layer for like the highlights. So I'm just gonna click the plus here and do the same thing, clipping mask. So it's gonna be like brighter highlights. Can make this brush a little bit smaller. So I would just do like everything as a separate layer. You don't want to like blend everything into one layer. Even if, and also if you're not happy with how things look, you can always just delete the layer. So like, I'm just drawing this out. I'm like, oh, I don't like it. I can delete that layer. I'm gonna keep that layer though, but you can, anything you don't like though, you can always delete it. You don't have to erase it again. So, you go with your highlights. You want to go like shadows, highlights, and then your bright whites. So I'm just kind of doing like a really quick rundown of like how it would look if you were to do it. But obviously take your time with it. Because if you really want to like digital paint or like learn that, it's a very lengthy process, and it takes a lot of practice and understanding of like how things look. So laid some shadows, highlights. You want to take your time with that, and then you can always kind of tweak the settings. So obviously this is still too dark of a gray. I can line that up. These highlights look fine, but this is like how you would go about with this. So you look at the one that's a little bit more in detail. I have most of my layers still intact on this particular drawing. I don't mind that. If you're to kind of like look at all the layers I drew, I did like a ton of layers, but let me just go back to kind of where I was at. So again, this is a little bit more advanced. So if this is like over the top for you, then you don't have to do as many layers. You keep it real simple. Most comic book artists, they would do like a shadow, mid-tone, highlight, and then go from there. But if you look at my layers though, this is like my shadow layer that I did, and then my mid-tones, highlights, and then I went into they call this I forget what the name of it was. It's basically what the colors are affecting there, because I'm choosing like this. This is like kind of affecting the shirt color. Reflected light, that's what they call. And I did the same thing with the hair. So on this layer of the hair, I'm just adding details. So you have to kind of do it for like each separate layer. And then there's one for the lips. So if you're wondering like why I didn't color the lips, I had the lips as a separate layer. So do the lips, the close. So I want like a mid-tone, a darker shadow, highlights. Add some details to the watch. And then after I was done with this part, I just basically painted over my portrait now. So this is like getting like the really strong highlights, and then just refining the painting a little bit more. And this is I basically saved everything as a layer, and then the last part, which is the background. Okay, and I'll put a separate video for the background. It's not too hard to do that. All right. Okay, but that's both methods though. And again, you can kind of pick either or for your